What's going on, my lovelies? It's Kyle here. So I want to primarily direct this video to the empaths today. You beautiful, kind, sensitive, compassionate, highly empathetic souls. This is for you. My message for you is sometimes it is best to escalate a situation. Once again, empaths, sometimes it is best to escalate a situation. And here's why. So, I'm directing this towards the empaths because many of you are very gifted in de-escalating situations. And you might have a tendency to de-escalate situations because you don't want to deal with heightened levels of emotions, because you feel a lot, because you tend to be sensitive beings. You pick up on other people's emotions and their emotional states a lot easier than the average person, and you feel this more intensely in many cases. Your natural reaction might be to de-escalate situations, to pretend like they're not a big deal when you actually internally do not feel comfortable with certain behaviors or with the situation. You might override that need, that want to actually change this behavior, to actually address it. But because you might be uncomfortable in the moment, and your natural inclination might be to de-escalate, in many cases where you should be escalating, where you should be making a big deal of a person's behavior, of a particular situation, you actually tend to do the opposite of what's best for your own health and what's best for the health of the relationship overall in the long term. So because you might have this tendency, a more natural inclination to de-escalate, it's good to remind y'all that sometimes you need to escalate situations. It is necessary in many occurrences. When you see somebody, when somebody treats you in a way that really hurts you, perhaps they're being passive aggressive, perhaps they're bullying to some extent, perhaps they're being quite disrespectful to you. Whatever it may be, whatever the behavior pattern dynamic is, if there's something that is bothering you, that you can't tolerate anymore, that is not beneficial for your health or the health of the relationship, you need to escalate these situations in order for attention, in order for the spotlight to be shown on this behavior, for this dynamic, in this situation. Because in order for the other person to be aware, because they might not even be aware, they might be somewhat aware that they're doing this, or they might not see it as being a big deal, or they might not view it as it negatively affecting you and negatively affecting the relationship overall. At the bare minimum, we need to escalate the situation. We need to shine a light on this behavior to make sure that at least they're aware, and pay attention to how they respond when you escalate the situation. Some people, a lot of their defense mechanisms are to dismiss, are to say it's not a big deal, are to tell you that, no, you're being too sensitive, you're acting crazy. This really isn't a big deal. You need to let this go. When people's defense mechanisms kick in, sometimes they try to dismiss it. They try to say it's not a big deal. But this isn't about their perspective. This is about your perspective. This is about, like, no, I understand that you don't think it's a big deal because it clearly doesn't negatively affect you, but it does to me. It's disrespectful to me. This is somewhat bullying behavior to me. Of course you don't think it's a big deal. And if you come across somebody who has a more difficult, perhaps maybe a more selfish disposition in certain aspects of their life, because they might not be selfish overall, but it might be these areas might be touchy. They might be extra defensive over it. When you're dealing with a situation like this, or a person with defense mechanisms that are coming up when you call them out, when you escalate the situation, hold firm, stand strong. Don't let them tell you that you're crazy. Don't let them tell you that this isn't a big deal. Don't let them tell you that, no, you're just too sensitive. If this isn't what you want in the relationship, this is your choice to bring it to their attention. This is your choice to tell them to work on it. But this is where you need to step in. Once you escalate the situation, once you lay out this behavior, how it negatively affects you, and at the bare minimum that you're not going to tolerate this anymore, you need to come up with consequences that you will, without fail, introduce to them if they continue to do this behavior. Now, you need to make sure if they're putting a quality effort in, if they're actually trying, if they catch themselves, or all you need to do is like, hey, you're doing it again. We're like, oh, if they seem genuinely sorry, if they genuinely are putting the effort, and you want to continue this relationship and you want to keep it the way it is, then maybe pull back. You don't need to escalate it every time, but it's good to keep pointing it out. If they continue the behavior, then we can pull back a little bit. If they're actually putting in the effort, if they're actually improving, that's a good thing. And that might be a situation or a telltale sign that you should continue to keep putting energy into this relationship. You should continue to be understanding as they begin to improve more and more in regards to this behavior or this situation. Now, if somebody is more resistant, they still dismiss, sweep it under the rug, pretend like it's not a big deal, call you crazy. Be firm with those consequences. Escalate the situation again. Be like, no, you're doing it again, and you don't think it's a big deal, and you're trying to be dismissive again. But once again, this is important to me. And I told you, if you're not going to actually put in the effort, if you're actually not going to work on this, there are going to be some consequences, and stay firm with those consequences. And if they continue to do this, they continue to not change, they continue to dismiss, and you put in these consequences, you might need to distance yourself from this person. You might need to distance yourself from this relationship. And if it comes to the point, you might need to cut them out completely. It's fully up to you. This is your choice. But at the end of the day, empaths, I know you all have a natural proclivity to de-escalating situations, to keeping the peace. But sometimes, when your boundaries are breached, when people partake in behaviors that are disrespectful, that negatively affect you, that are very selfish, you need to escalate the situation if you want something to change. If you want to honor the part of yourself that is negatively affected, that is actually hurt, that does not want to tolerate this anymore, then you need to escalate. Otherwise, it's not going to change. Otherwise, they won't have the opportunity to potentially see what they're doing and how it affects you and how it affects other people as well. So sometimes it is best to escalate a situation, especially if you want this person's behavior to change, especially if you don't want to find yourself in these situations over time. I'll leave it there. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you're at in the world. Until next time.